Welcome back to Advocacy in Action. This is our second episode, and super excited for today, Robin. Today, we're going to open up an ongoing podcast series. It's dedicated to Alberta Bill 11. I know a lot of advisors saw the initial delays and when the bill was first announced, weren't sure what the date was. And maybe some advisors kind of hit the snooze button on that. But Robin, we just got clarity. The government has confirmed an effective date of October 1st of this fall. So why treating it like a kind of distant, abstract problem would be like a massive mistake for an advisor's credibility right now?
Yeah, and Caroline, I want to say, their first episode of our podcast went really well, and I'm really excited about this series because this is an important one, and this is a perfect example of why this podcast exists. So, the whole issue here is timing. October 1st, we were talking with our guest prior to hitting record, and the comment I couldn't agree more with. It seems like a far off date. People think we'll deal with that later. But in our world, that date lands right in the middle of those renewal conversations, budgeting, plan strategies, that sort of thing. So the credibility risk for advisor isn't that we, don't have the final answer today. Like nobody does, realistically. This just came out. So the risk is walking into that meeting with leadership and having them say, what are we doing about Alberta B11? And you haven't even raised it yet. So that's where you can look like you're behind in the conversation. So I don't think this is about creating panic. I don't think it's about telling clients to start ripping apart plan designs today, but it is about putting the issue on the radar early, explaining what we know, being honest about what we don't know yet, because there's still plenty we don't know, and starting, the budget tolerance conversation now. That's what clients expect from us. They don't expect perfection on day one, but they do expect us to see around corners.
Yeah, most definitely. Exactly, Robin. And, I'm excited about our guest today, but I will share up front, as we alluded to and said in our first episode together, we're a young association. We're new. The Smart Health Benefits Association, people are getting to know us. And our voice has time and time again been validated as so distinct, so unique. There's carriers at the table, there's farmer at the table. These are advisors. We are advisors who work day in and day out with employer plan sponsors to help them understand what is happening and the impact to them as an employer and their employees. So it was so, again, validating to sit down, myself, along with one of our board members, Graham Young, and our government relations folks at the table and introduce ourselves. And I'll tell you, Robin, right away they said, we wish we met you months ago. This is a voice that we need to hear. We are in Alberta about to roll something out that will impact every single employer plan sponsor in the province. And we want to make sure we get it right and have a great landing for everyone. So with that said, part of our early structure has been setting up the Smart Health Benefits Association with working groups. And one of those working groups is the healthcare working group. And so our guest today is Tim Clarke, chair of that group. And welcome, Tim. We're so thrilled to have you. And I just want to ask you, how big of a win is that we got a seat at the table? We are meeting now subsequently, part of the working group for Alberta Health. We're at the table with everyone. And how does that make you feel?
Yeah, thanks, Caroline. Thanks, Robin. Yeah, it's really as you say, as a new organization, a new working group, you're having this discussion of, well, how do you get started? What are you trying to accomplish? How do you get there? To have something that sort of shows up live on the table to work on, to learn from, and not just to experiment on, but actually to end up at those kinds of conversations with the government. Great way to sort of set the tone and prove that, yeah, this is something that works, and we're actually welcomed at the table. So yeah, it was great to have something live to work on that was kind of the obvious first priority.
Yeah, yeah, a great win. And, there is a lot to digest. And I will say up front, Robin, we're going to have a lot of fun with this together as future episodes. We're going to have a dedicated series on Alberta Bill 11 because there is a lot to digest. And Tim, for the advisors listening to this episode, can you give us really the high level reality of what's happening and things that people should be aware of as they start to prepare for October the 1st?
Yeah, Absolutely. And yes, this is it's always one of those conversations of how much detail do you want, but kind of try and keep it kind of bite sized. Really kind of three things to take away. Good consultant always come up with a list of three. You've got the fact that coverage now cannot end at age 65 for certain health benefits in Alberta. That has an impact in a lot of ways, both subtle and significant. The second piece about the government essentially becoming last payer in a number of situations is a sort of significant change and a significant way of kind of rethinking how private plans and public plans work side by side. So, taking away those 2 points around the, not being able to have the age restriction, government as second payer of last resort, however you want to term it, and that October 1st date that you mentioned a moment ago. If you come away with those 3 points, you know enough now to go ahead and do your research. You kind of have the headlines, and kind of you're ready to now do that dive into. So what do I need to know on these if I'm going to be having that conversation? And you should be having that conversation with your clients very, very soon, if not already.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you, Tim. I think that as we go forward, people listening to this, we may have employers listening, we'll have advisors listening, all the carrier stakeholders. We may even have government folks listening because people will want to understand what is this impact and how do we help navigate, as mentioned. So Robin, Tim just sort of laid out the macro reality of what's about to happen. And yeah, the clock is ticking as we get towards October the 1st. So, what, as an advisor, would you say to the employer now, tomorrow morning? You got a meeting with them. What are you saying, knowing that we don't want to, as you say, hit the panic button?
Exactly. The way I'd put this is don't overreact, but don't be passive either, right? The wrong move is to go to a client and say, "Hey, we need to change your plan immediately. We don't have that information yet." So, just take a breath. But I think the other wrong move is saying nothing until the renewal lands on their desk, right? The right move, and Tim, thanks for your perspective today, because I think it's important. The right move is to bring it forward now and saying, "Hey, this is coming. We're monitoring it. Thanks to organizations like this, the SHBA, we're engaged in the implementation conversation, and the carriers are working through the financial administrative details. So in the interim, let's understand your exposure and your tolerance for potential cost movement." That's a strategic conversation. And that's the conversation that leadership really appreciates.
Yeah, and it's setting the landscape before you even get to the strategic. This is happening proactively in form that without all the details, and there's a lot of the details that are available, but without everything there, don't let that get in the way of having that initial conversation of, this is the landscape and how it's changing. Having that as a proactive conversation, even when you don't have all the answers, but beginning to dive into that. So what does this mean if we do nothing? Then that's kind of always the starting point on these. Well, if the world is shifting around you, what happens if we do nothing? That helps you sort of quantify, qualify, understand all the different elements, whether that's contractual plan documents, whether that's communication to your employees that needs to change, whether it's financial impact. Just what's going to happen if this change comes into effect and I don't do anything. That then sets sort of the next bar, which is, and so then what should I do? Should I be looking to adapt? Should I be looking to mitigate? Should I be looking to think differently? But Robin, you're absolutely right. Don't do that last step before you fully understand, do a level set and understanding of where you're at today and what the implications are, and then address those implications on a client by client basis, because it's going to be different depending on all the things that every broker and every advisor is already having those conversations with their clients about how they're unique, and trying to tailor solutions to meet those unique needs. You need to get that information on the table first about where we're starting from proactively. You don't want to be the one who gets the call to say, why haven't you talked to me about this yet? But you're right. Educate first, make decisions later. We talked about this. October 1st is going to come very soon, and we all know that the months leading up to whether it's a renewal or a change of any sort, a plan sponsor doesn't make a change overnight. A plan sponsor can't communicate that overnight. They need you to be proactive to get the conversation started today, so that they have adequate time to make the decisions they need and roll that out. Because October 1st is going to come shockingly quickly.
You're spot on, Tim. And Yeah, oh, as anyone knows, a great advisor is starting those conversations early. And the response to do nothing, there's going to be a lot of employers that look at their line item, their budget, and say, "Hey, we can tolerate this. This is going to be an increase, but we look at this coverage." But I'll plant the seed to say, we're going to take each of these points and go, deeper. So I love that we've all concluded here, like, don't panic. We are going to be proactive to manage the risk. And for advisors that are listening to this right now, we have just sent out a very exclusive member only bulletin containing all the details that Tim discussed with us today. So if you're not a member yet, if you're an advisor that has even one client in Alberta or two or 200, it doesn't matter. I feel like we're going to have a lot to talk about. And whether you're driving around or watching this episode, you should join. You should join SHBA, become a member, and get plugged in, because this is one topic today. Tomorrow could be Ontario, and the next day could be national. So this is our purpose in informing advocacy and action.
Yeah, and it's that, inform, but it's also this is a collective of advisors that can learn from each other. So there's both the information that SHBA is already prepared, that can help you get up to speed, but working together as advisors who are seeing slightly different variations of what it might mean to their plan sponsor clients, and collaborating when change is coming quickly. Again, it's what the organization is for. So to be able to work with other advisors, but also the fact that SHBA is at the table. As much as we know October 1st, my biggest point at the end of this is stay tuned. Have conversations with your clients with speed, but not with haste, and stay tuned, because the landscape may still change again. But fortunately, SHBA is right there at the table to make sure that we are going to be able to inform everybody.
Yeah, amazing. And in fact, I just got the invitation yesterday. Our meeting is in July, and so I'm really looking forward to bringing in our advisors that are boots on the ground to participate and help everyone navigate. So thanks, everyone. Please subscribe to this podcast, Advocacy in Action. Consider being a member, and we'll just plug you right in, and we'll keep having fun while we learn and educate, and away we go. So thanks for tuning in, and welcome to the new voice of the industry.